Welcome back to the Middle Tech Podcast. You've got Logan Jones here, joined by Evan Knowles. And our guest today is from all the way down in Austin, though not originally. He is a UK graduate from Louisville. And if you're in the Lexington startup ecosystem, you likely remember his name. Today, we're talking with Destin George Bell, who is the founder and CEO of Cardio. Also exciting about Cardio, they just premiered their episode on Shark Tank. So we're really excited to talk with Destin about his experience going on that show. Before we jump into this interview, though, we just want to get a quick word from our sponsors. Before highlighting our sponsors, we'd just like to state that the views and content shared on this platform do not necessarily reflect those of our show sponsors. Middle Tech is presented by KY Innovation, the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development's Office of Entrepreneurship. KY Innovation exists to support and develop Kentucky's startup ecosystem, and we are proud to be supported by an organization whose mission aligns so closely with ours. If you're a founder building in Kentucky, you need to check out the resources that KY Innovation has to offer. You can find more information by clicking the link in our show notes or going to kyinnovation.com. Middle Tech is also supported by Huntsicker, an impact venture studio based in Lexington, Kentucky. Huntsicker is creating companies out of the ordinary by founding and funding the next generation of purpose-driven startups. They partner with founders to create indispensable solutions to the world's most fundamental problems. On a quarterly basis, they host an invite-only intimate gathering called Fireside Convos, where attendees representing a wide network of stakeholders in the regional entrepreneurial ecosystem discuss timely topics, including the role of AI for startups out of Kentucky and the challenges of identifying and attracting talent. To be considered as a guest, visit huntsicker.co/fireside to apply. Middle Tech is sponsored by Bolt Marketing. Take your website to the next level with a website that's built to work. At Bolt Marketing, they're revolutionizing websites for small businesses that are affordable, customizable, and hassle-free. Whether you have a construction company, a boutique clothing store, or you own a hot yoga studio, they have options for you. Click the link in our show notes to explore their marketing options that can transform your marketing and grow your business. And as a personal note, Bolt Marketing built our website, and they were awesome to work with throughout the entire process. We highly recommend working with. All right, Destin, welcome on to the podcast. So happy to have you. It's been really cool to watch your journey from knowing you at UK to now you're down in Austin and recently on Shark Tank. So welcome on to the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, so I appreciate you guys having me on. I feel like I made it. It's more impactful than being on Shark Tank.
That's awful flattering, man. We're excited to have you on. We're excited to talk about your experience on Shark Tank. I know you've got all sorts of great stories of your path to starting your company and getting on Shark Tank, and we're really excited to dive into all of those. First question, though, that I like to ask, and I feel like this one's going to be pretty relevant to you because I saw that you actually brought your mom on Shark Tank with you. A question I enjoy asking kind of right off the bat, just to get the simplest version of what a company is doing, is how do you describe the business to your mom?
Yeah, well, that was a funny thing because when I told my mom about it, she really didn't get it at first. So I was like, all right, Mom, now imagine, because she does not run, she doesn't touch cardio fitness. She might walk a couple miles, but that's about the best she's going to do. So I'm like, all right, now, Mom, imagine capture the flag. She's like, okay. Now imagine an app like Strava. What's Strava? I'm like, okay. Imagine an app that tracks your walking and running, like mile, pace, distance, calories, okay? Now imagine if the area of town you went through was like capture the flag, where you own that area. It's like, so, like, well, because it's fun. Like, well, why is it fun? I'm like, because it's a game. It's like, well, I don't like games. I'm like, you know what, Mom? That's fair. But other people do. It's pretty cool. It's like, all right, well, if you want to do it, I trust you. And that was our first general conversation about the company. That was all the way back in 2020. And so, if I had to do the mom test per se, I would say that imagine capture the flag mixed in with Strava as you're tracking your walking and running routes in the areas of town that you move through, your mile pace or distance, your calories, the general statistics that you would get from an app like that. You also claim that road, neighborhood trail, spot on, running out route of any kind that you move through while tracking all those stats. And then people can steal it from you, or you can steal it from them by moving through their part of town.
Very cool. Gamified cardio. And if you haven't seen the Shark Tank episode, would highly encourage you to go watch it. I believe it's actually free on ABC. I just kind of Googled Shark Tank and was able to go and watch your episode. So no reason for anybody not to see it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that you had to pay.
Yeah.
Money for Hulu.
So anybody listening, we'll put the link to the show in the show notes. You should definitely go and check it out. But I mentioned in the intro, you're originally from Louisville, Kentucky. Talk about, coming from Louisville, going to UK. Let's get into some of your background and talk about how you got into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Yeah, so talking about my mom, as she would tell it, I always had a capacity for entrepreneurship as a kid. So when I was 5 years old, she used to tell me that I would put a table outside of our childhood home, and I would take my toys and I would put them on there, and I would try to flip my toys to other neighborhood kids. Nobody bought because I was trying to sell like busted used Spider-Man toys for like $50 that retailed at like 10. So I didn't really understand like supply and demand yet.
Sure.
But at least I was trying, A for effort. And so I would do that as a kid. When I was in middle school, I started selling candy in school and shoveling snow. I would even clean gutters and mulch and do things like that, whatever I could find around the neighborhood to make some money. Come high school, I would ghostwrite people's essays and scholarship papers for getting into college and getting scholarships and whatnot. And I always had this idea of, I hate working for people, and also I hate only making like $8 an hour for a whole bunch of labor. It just seems very inefficient. So I'd rather work for myself where I don't have to listen to people, and then also make more money than I would on an hourly doing something for myself than for somebody else. And that idea just was always interesting to me. And my entire time in Louisville, especially considering my family was more on the poor, lower middle class side, I spent a lot of time finding ways to make money so that way I could buy some Jordans and go out and actually get some nice clothes and do the fun things a lot of my friends were doing, since my parents didn't want to give me money for that stuff. And then once I moved to Lexington, I ended up going to UK because of the fact I was broke and I needed some scholarship money, and they gave me more than anybody else. That's honestly the main reason that I went, beyond the fact that I also heard they had a really good business program, and I knew I wanted to get into business somehow, some way. And once I got into the UK ecosystem, that's when I started my first legit company. It was called Life Off You. It was a marketing platform helping businesses off campus connect with students who were looking for things to do, places to shop, events to attend and whatnot around campus or outside of campus around the city of Lexington. And I was pretty much off on the races from there, man, in terms of like real legitimate business, and hopefully in that time a startup that I could really put my hands around.
Did you have anybody you looked up to or look to that was a good example of entrepreneurship that you began to mimic or look up to?
I had a lot of examples. My mother was somebody who I looked up to as a kid. She was an event coordinator. She would DJ. She even did wedding planning and whatnot. She had a company that was doing really well for a while for wedding planning. And I was basically the muscle. I was the big guns. So I would always have to carry the heavy stuff around and pretty much follow her around as a kid and do all these different events and weddings and help her with moving her speakers and whatnot when she would DJ. And I always saw how much love and passion she had for the work she did. And even though she didn't make a ton of money, we weren't going to have any like 10x multiplier exits or anything like that with that. But I could tell that she loved it and she made decent money with it, and it was a labor of love for her. And then as I got to UK and I started meeting other entrepreneurs, Evan, you were actually one of the first ones I met at the University of Kentucky, Michael Lewis, a bunch of other guys in Lexington who were doing really cool stuff. Obviously, the guys at Awesome Inc. I got very close with. And then people who would come and speak at UK, like Sarah Sanders and a whole bunch of other alumni who I would talk with, chat with a lot, ask questions, and then shadow if I could and learn from what they were doing and figure out if I could do the same for myself.
Yeah, I remember meeting you at UK, how much energy you had, and then Life Off You. I remember you launching that. It was really awesome to see. I'm curious to hear your experience with college. I think you were a year behind me, and so you had the opportunity to go through like the boot camp. UK started to launch more entrepreneurial focused things. When I was there, I mean, there just wasn't any of that. And so I'm curious, in hindsight, after going through college with such an entrepreneurial mind, what was your experience? But also, in hindsight, would you make that decision again? And what would you maybe give advice to those that want to do entrepreneurship or in that position to think about college, but know they want to start a business, and maybe how to leverage college to build a business? I think there's a lot of good things that colleges offer to help, get you active and engaged and meet other people. So I guess just in hindsight, what's your thoughts on college and how it relates to entrepreneurship?
It's a mixed bag for me. So let's talk about the bad stuff first so we can end positive. I think that the University of Kentucky, at least the 4 years I was there, 2016 to 2020, they had a lot of subsidiary programs that focused on entrepreneurship, but I felt like a lot of them didn't get pushed as heavily as the normal curriculum of teaching people how to get jobs. I used to joke with Warren Nash a lot about this, which, for anybody who doesn't know who Warren Nash is, he's the director of VACE, the Von Allman Center for Entrepreneurship. That's the group that hosts the boot camp and a lot of the entrepreneurial programming in the Gatton College. And I used to joke with him all the time that honestly, UK has been designed to make employees and not employers. And I felt that a lot in my time going there, that people were telling me, well, you should go to your Finance 300 class instead of go to 5 Across. And I said, why would I go to my Fin 300 class to learn about stuff I could read about versus meeting entrepreneurs who are actually in the field doing stuff right now who I might not get to meet again and create a meaningful impact with people who might be my first investor or a mentor or a co-founder or whatnot one day. And a lot of teachers gave me a lot of crap for that. And then on top of that, there were a lot of entrepreneurial initiatives that I started because there was this big lack of opportunity for entrepreneurs to go and find a place to become an entrepreneur, to learn about entrepreneurship concepts. This is the reason why I brought back the Entrepreneurship Club in my time there, because I felt like there's this big hole where maybe there's the Von Allman Center who has their boot camp, but then if you don't have an idea or you don't really want to get your hands super dirty into a company yet and you just want to learn the concepts, there's not really a lot of classes for, especially the underclassmen. They had a couple for senior management because they had a management like 492 venture creation class. I don't even know if they still have that, but I literally had to switch to a double major in management to even be able to take that class. And so for a lot of people, because I was a marketing major initially, that's not even available. So there's not a lot of places that you could get entrepreneurial education at UK unless you went through the Von Allman Center, unless you were a senior studying management, or if you went through the MBA program. So the Entrepreneurship Club was my way of trying to bring that to light for people and help students find other like-minded people. And then on the tip of the like-minded part, and this is to be expected because being an entrepreneur is hard work, and it's not something that a lot of people want to do. And for the people who want to do it, a lot of them won't when they realize how much work it is, and it's not just up and to the right every day. Even when I talk to people about the Shark Tank episode and they say, oh man, I want to do what you do, I'm like, do you really though? Because the highlight reel looks great, but the parts that come between these big wins is not always as fun as the wins are. And there was a lot of people like that who I met around campus who told me they wanted to do this, or people I worked with on Life Off You and all these different things and projects and ideas. And then when it came time to actually do the work, a lot of them didn't. They didn't show up to these events. They didn't show up to the Entrepreneurship Club meetings. They didn't show up to these meetings I had around how we're going to grow Life Off You. And then when I would actually give them advice on things they could do to start a company, and then I would follow up with them next semester, they would be at the same spot they were the first semester. So, a lot of people in the student ecosystem would talk a big game and then they wouldn't actually be about it. And it was just very difficult sometimes to find somebody who I could connect with and actually consider a peer, unless they were, like you, Evan, and others who had already kind of done it and been out there doing it. And I had to go talk to them about it and, learn from them directly. So those are the negatives, but the positives, I'd say, were also equally strong. For one, there were programs like the Von Allman Center, and then there were professors and whatnot that I talked to who did support some of these dreams and gave me a lot of leniency. Christine Wiles, I don't know if you met her, Evan or Logan, but she was a great lady at UK. Obviously, Warren Nash, Miriam, a bunch of people at the Von Allman Center. There were also a couple other professors who I met throughout my time there who were extremely encouraging of it, gave me opportunity. And then even though this is slightly separate from UK, but I feel like it's all kind of adjacent, Nick Such, Brian, and his crew over at Awesome Inc., they gave me a ton of opportunity and taught me a bunch, introduced me to great people. And then the university did sponsor a lot of the things we did with the Entrepreneurship Club. Over a 9-month period, we raised like $20 grand. And a lot of that came from college groups like the Gatton College, the main building office with Dr. Monday. We got a lot of co-signing and help from Heath Price and a bunch of other people in, the ITS college. And we had a great organization of people who showed up and showed out and helped me a lot in these initiatives. And I met some lifelong friends who I still hang out with to this day. Some of them even moved to Austin. So I feel like a lot of people, unfortunately, will look at something like UK and think, oh, well, they don't have this ASU level entrepreneurship program. And that's true, but there is a lot of opportunity there. And I would definitely go back again if I had to make that decision over in 2016.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I would go back and do it again, because it's there I discovered a lot of my passion and entrepreneurship, and it's there that I also gained a lot of confidence to do it myself. And, ultimately I didn't have as many resources, I think, as you had. I was like right on that edge, and I ended up making the decision to leave, but I would still go back and do it again because it was so fundamental, and I love UK, and, there were so many great people that helped me along the road, and I made my best friends, met my best friends there. So yeah, I don't think you can change things in hindsight, but I'm with you. There's definitely a lot of positives and negatives about college. And I think, my advice is if you're one of those people that have an entrepreneurial bend, like us, and they're just passionate about something, use university as much as you can as leverage to get into those things and meet relevant people, but just also have the awareness that, you're probably better off being self-taught as much as possible, and just going out there and hustling yourself and falling down and failing and learning. I think that can't be taught in college. I just think they ultimately fail at that kind of thinking. Like you said, they're teaching people not to fail and become employees versus teaching people to fail and continue to get back up and win eventually. But so tell us about the move to Austin, because quickly, if I remember correctly, after you graduated, you went down there. There's just way more opportunity in Austin. I think you had a good amount of friends moving down there maybe, but talk to us about, why that move took place, and then the timing with that move and starting cardio.
Yeah, so it was pretty much a plan I had before COVID. I had already been plotting on making a move out of Kentucky once I graduated. I actually had an internship in Dallas the summer before my senior year, and that was my first time living outside of Kentucky my entire life. And I didn't really like Dallas, I'll be honest. I didn't really like it much. But I knew that Texas as a whole had a lot of opportunity, and I heard a lot of good things about Austin. So when I got back from Dallas and started my senior year, it was already kind of in my head. Let's see what we can do to maneuver and plot our way down to Austin, Texas. So flash forward, obviously COVID comes around March 20. I graduate May 20. So now I'm stuck post-COVID. I don't really have a job. I made some really bad stock trades, got into Robinhood, day trading, options, and that didn't go well.
I've been there. It never goes well.
I feel like it's a rite of passage. I feel like you have to.
It is. Yeah, it is.
You have to lose a four-figure amount in a day to consider yourself a real business person, especially on Robinhood options. You got to do it. Rite of passage. So I had mine, and then that kind of put me on my dad's air mattress for a couple of months because I lost a lot of my life savings at that point. And I knew that, one, I didn't want to live in Kentucky, so I didn't want to get locked into a lease. And two, I didn't really have any money at the time to even get an apartment. So I found myself sleeping on an air mattress at his place for a couple of months. And then during that time, I was looking for work. I was trying to come up with these ideas, this idea of a gamified cardio fitness app that could make outdoor walking and running a little bit more fun, especially during COVID when, again, you can't go to the gym, you can't go play basketball, you can't do a lot of these group activities I would do to get my workouts in. Unfortunately, I really could only do push-ups at home and run circles around my neighborhood. And push-ups is fine. I'll do my push-ups. That's fine. But running became such a chore to run just for running's sake. And I was thinking, well, how could you find a way to make running a fun social experience while running by yourself in your neighborhood? And I thought about Pokemon Go and how Pokemon Go was creating this very fun, gamified way to get people to move. And one really cool stat that I was seeing during COVID was there were actually more miles being tracked on a daily basis on Pokemon Go than Strava, Garmin, Apple Health, all these legitimate trackers. And it just made me wonder, could you take the gamification strategy of something like Pokemon Go and then make it a cardio fitness tracker? And so flash forward into around August of 2020, I had this idea, didn't even have a name, it hadn't really gone anywhere. I'd barely made wireframes for it or anything like that. But I knew I didn't want to live in Kentucky anymore, and I'd heard all these good things about Austin, and I had no job or investment, and I didn't even have any friends there at the time. I had one buddy who I was loosely connected to who was doing his PhD program at UT, and outside of that, I didn't know a soul there. But I figured, you know what, dude, entrepreneurs, they're bold people. Fortune favors the bold. Let's do something bold. And I just got in my car and just drove to Austin one day. I literally got my Airbnb mid-drive. And I spent the last money I had in my bank account on the Airbnb and said, let's do it. Let's just figure it out. We're either going to go broke or we're going to make millions. One or the other. There is no in between. And, that was 4 years ago pretty much. That was October 2020. So, yeah, almost over 4 years ago now. And the best decision I ever made, in my opinion.
I'm curious, when you got down to Austin, one of the things I always admired about you while you were at UK and we kind of knew each other through our social circles is you're just like a great networker. Just like getting out there and meeting people was definitely one of your strong suits. I'm just curious, you're going to a brand new city. It's much bigger than Lexington, different dynamics. Did you have any difficulty getting connected down there? Was it easy for you? Just kind of talk through that process of coming to a new city and trying to meet people.
I would say it was difficult and also not difficult because I moved during COVID. So there were no in-person events. There was no accelerator programs I could join. And then also I wasn't a student there. So, I wasn't connected to this UT Austin community of people either. I was a full-on transplant with no connective tissue. I didn't have a job to start off with coworkers. I didn't have a network of people who could make intros for me down there, really. So I really just got straight to work once I landed. Even before I landed, because I knew I was going, I would DM people who I could see. So the first thing I did was I looked for University of Kentucky alumni who lived there. And so I reached out to a whole bunch of UK alumni and started meeting with them on Zoom. Then I started going onto Eventbrite and just looking up tech events that were on Zoom. And I would show up, and then I would take a screenshot of the chat list of all the participants, and then I would DM all of them afterward. And at the time, I didn't have a job. I was actually working for Sarah Sanders. I appreciate Sarah a ton for this because at the time I was literally unhireable. Nobody would hire me. And so Sarah gave me a job as a blog writer for her ag tech company. I was making like $8 an hour, and I was working with Sarah. And at the time, $8 an hour, I wasn't paying the bills very much. So I was sliding into a whole bunch of people's DMs on LinkedIn asking for random contract work. So there's a whole bunch of people who gave me random stuff. Like this guy hired me to make some websites for him. So he let me make 3 websites for him for $2,000. Another person let me do copywriting for the website for $270. Another guy gave me a contract gig as a social media manager for $18 an hour. And so I was doing all these random side gigs while I was coming up with ideas for what I could do as a full-time entrepreneur. And, meeting people was difficult, but at the same time, I also felt kind of like Lexington. People were very open. They see a young guy who's making an effort and shows some skill and shows a little bit of desire to grow as a man, as a business founder, as an entrepreneur. And he's also offering value. And a lot of people said, you know what? I admire the fact that you're willing to reach out to a stranger and be vulnerable and also talk about what your dreams are. And then people just gave me opportunity. And then when I did good work for them, I make a website for this guy and he gives me a referral to make somebody else's website. And then I make copy for this guy, and then he actually introduces me to the founder of Map My Fitness because he sees that I'm a smart dude and I have this cardio fitness app, and he connects me with a friend of his who made a really successful cardio fitness app. And so even before I went to my very first in-person event in Austin, because I think the very first legit networking event I went to wasn't until around like April-ish of 2021, but by then I had already built a really strong community of people just through DMing people on LinkedIn and showing up to random Zoom events on Eventbrite.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all to hear. Just from what I know about your story of you're relentless in terms of finding the opportunities, whether that's like relational opportunities or investment opportunities or new deals, stuff like that. I feel like you're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen for yourself, which is awesome, which is what it takes when going to a new city. But transitioning from talking about Austin to let's talk about Shark Tank. First off, yeah. I don't think I'm aware, or maybe our listeners aren't either, of how you actually get on Shark Tank. Like, is it an application process? Just talk us through what it looks like to actually end up on the show.
Yeah, it was so random, man. So genuinely, it was April of this year. So about 6 months from when we were recording this, and about 6 months before the episode actually aired. And I get a DM from some guy. We have no mutuals. He doesn't have a robust LinkedIn profile of a whole bunch of activity and posts. And he DMs me, and it's one of those in-mail DMs, and it says, Shark Tank season 16 opportunity. And say, hey, Destin, I heard about your platform. Didn't even say like the name of the app. He said, I heard about your platform. It's really interesting. I would love to talk to you about being on season 16 of Shark Tank. And immediately I'm like, oh, BS, no chance. No way. You don't DM somebody to be on Shark Tank. You go and apply and you pray to God or whatever God you serve to be on there. It's like the prom queen coming up to the nerdy wallflower and saying, you want to dance with me? Like, that doesn't happen. That's not supposed to happen. But I took a couple days to look up this guy, and I went to his Twitter and his LinkedIn, and I looked him up online. And it turns out he was legit, at least from everything I saw online, unless he was a really good scammer. He had a robust digital portfolio of Shark Tank events and things that he was mentioned in. And so I figured, all right, you know what? Screw it. Let's see what happens. So I reach out to him a couple of days later, and we hop on a Zoom call, and then turns out he's very legit. He's asking real questions. He's not saying, oh, I know Mark Cuban. If you give me $1,000, I can get you on. It wasn't that type of deal. He was legitimately saying, all right, cool. I'm representing Shark Tank. I think you would be a really good dude. I saw some of your pitches online. I read an article about you and your company somewhere, and I thought your personality and your company would be really good for the show. And if you want to be in it, fill out this application, do this background check, and we'll see what happens. And I figured, it wouldn't hurt. So application was very long. It was like 150 questions, and not just like yes, no's or fill in the blank or like a multi-select boxes. It was fill in the blank. What's your motivation? What's your biggest accomplishment? Who inspires you? How did you start the company? It was like 100 of those. It was extremely long. And so it took me 2 days to fill it out. And I do my background check and I do all this. And then about 2 weeks later, they reach out to me and say, hey, we want you to submit a video. And so I submit a video. And again, you know me, I take everything seriously. I'm a hard worker. I don't shortchange anything. But at the same time, I'm like, this is not really going to go anywhere. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in the Shark Tank basket. I'm going to focus on making a great company and put my energy into that. So literally, no joke, I had my buddy go with me to a park, and he literally was just holding his phone like this. And I was walking towards him, and he was backpedaling, and I just did that for 8 minutes and just recorded a video of me talking about the app while I was using the app as we walked around. And genuinely, that was it. I added captions. I did a little bit of denoiser on Premiere to make sure that the wind wasn't doing a whole bunch, but that was it. That was really all I did. And then a week later, they said, oh, the producers loved it. Let's do a live interview with the producers. I said, oh, shit. Cool. So this is like actually a real thing. So now I'm on a call with a couple of producers for the show and casting directors. And then it's a whole production of talking about, show us how you would pitch and have a demo of the app set up and all this different type of stuff that we had to do. And so I do all that. And then a week later, they say, all right, you're basically in. And then from there, now it's just a whole bunch of due diligence. We want you to give us all this information about the company. It's like the same thing you would do with a VC, basically. And they even said, we are better than the FBI. We will find out if there's anything you should know. So let us know. If you didn't file your taxes in 2017, we'll find out. So let us know ahead of time. If you have any misdemeanors, you got an unpaid parking ticket, we're going to figure it out. So just be as forthcoming with all this stuff as possible. And so we go through that process. And then eventually they say, all right, you're on Shark Tank. And then, we fly on location. And, yeah, man, we film the episode. And
is it recorded in New York? Where's it recorded?
It's LA.
LA. That makes sense. So talk about your process for preparing for it once you knew you were going to be on and like getting ready to actually go on TV and on a show that is viewed by, so many people. I'm sure, did that make you nervous? You probably pitched so many times that it's not as nervous as you could have been, but I'm sure there's still some nerves before you're going on there. How'd you prepare for that?
Yeah, well, of course there's nerves. You play a million football games to get to the Super Bowl, and Super Bowl's a Super Bowl. So, of course, it would nerves, even though it's the same type of game, still throwing the football, catching the football, running into an end zone. But the stage and the magnitude of what's at stake obviously wear it on me. But like you said, the prep work wasn't as intensive for me. Now, there was a lot of stuff that Shark Tank required me to do. Mm-hmm. In order to be on the show. That was very intensive. Like coming up with a product demo that was approved, like even like picking out an outfit I was approved to wear and stuff like that. No logos, no this, no that. And then how I approach things. And then also my script for what I would say when I first walk out there, because there's no free balling on that first pitch. You gotta be word for word on script. Now after that, everything Q&A wise is pretty much off the cuff. But the beginning, when you're doing your monologue and all that, it's very rehearsed. I probably did it 20-ish times on Zoom with producers, and they said, oh, get rid of this word and use that word. And a lot of things they tweaked. Like even the beginning of my pitch when I talked about like, oh, who doesn't like sitting in place, staring at a monitor as the numbers tick up on a treadmill. It's like, you should add that. Give them, the Sharks really like you comparing and juxtaposing with something that sucks and then talk about how your product is great. So that was their idea, and there was a lot of back and forth on that. But in terms of prep for me, there wasn't a lot that I personally needed to do. As you guys know, I pitch a ton, and I feel like I'm really good at it. I feel like it's one of my greatest strengths is my presentation ability And then also I've been watching the show my entire life. So I kind of went into it already knowing what it is that Kevin likes and what Lori invested in and what Damon looks for and what Mark is interested in. The only person I really had to do prep for was Rashawn, the guest shark, because I didn't really know who he was beforehand. But outside of that, I knew my product, I knew my pitch, I knew my numbers, and I knew what those sharks look for. And I also knew what sharks I wanted and which sharks would be interested. So, at that point, it really just came down to just executing on what I had already done a million times over, but just with a bunch of cameras and a lot wealthier people than usual.
Yeah. Well, get into the effect that had on your business. I'm sure you got a lot of great publicity and, that got you in front of maybe other investors or other people that have reached out and wanting to get involved. Like what does something like getting on Shark Tank mean to a business like yours?
Oh man, pretty much everything you said. A ton of media attention. We've done so many interviews, so many interviews. We had thousands of new users sign up. So our revenue spiked, daily activity spiked. Our SEO and ASO in the App Store spiked, and obviously there was a lot of issues that came with it too. Like a lot of people who were signing up who were in countries the app didn't work in yet, or a lot of Android people who had their pitchforks and torches out because we don't have an Android app, and then glitches and things that we didn't even think about. Like, oh, you know what? We had a 2,000 person or 2,000 API call limit per day for Strava and Garmin, and we were hitting that around like noonish. And then people were saying, oh, well, I can't upload from Strava. This app sucks. It's useless. And I didn't really think about that. It's something I didn't even really think about. And a lot of things that came in that. Even like stuff that I didn't really expect. I actually had a reality TV show recruiter reach out to me and said, dude, your personality is killer. You should do TV. We got this apprentice-style show we're going to do, and we would love for you to be on it, man. Like, you don't even have to audition. Just say the word and you want to be on it, you can be on it pretty much. So a lot of stuff I didn't even really think about came out of it, and a lot of things that I hoped for came out of it. It's been a lot of, it's just been a lot of everything, a lot of media, a lot of interviews. I've done a ton of these podcasts, a ton of media interviews, and going here and talking about this and doing that. But it's been great. It's everything I hoped it would be and more, really.
What's next? So with that momentum, what are you going to do with the business going forward over the next several months to a year? What are the big things on your checklist here to grow it?
Yeah, the big thing now is really optimizing our LTV for our users. As a freemium app, we've been in the market for a little under 2 years now, and the first year and change was really focused on just getting people to use it and see if they liked it and if they would be sticky. And we've been able to show that. Now our focus is how do we continue to create a business out of this? How do we make this a profitable, scalable venture that actually makes money and doesn't have to rely on venture dollars? So our big focus is the monetization part of it. So that's the premium subscriptions in the app. That's some of our B2B products, such as the corporate wellness product that we pilot with a couple of companies here in Austin and are looking to scale out. That's building out a dedicated advertising product. That's also lowering our CAC so that way we can eventually get to a point where LTV is higher than acquisition cost. And then being able to just show repeatable, scalable, sustainable business economics inside of a freemium app that as of now has just been a cool, novel tool that now needs to start actually making money.
Yeah. What, I was in a situation where when I started Simba, which is my last company, we thought we were building a B2B app. At least we set out to. Next thing we know, we're a B2C app. B2C apps, way different than B2B. Just grossly different. Like you mentioned, CAC is different. The things you got to focus on are different. You have to account for product feedback that's going to come from so many different types of users, personalities, locations. There's so much that comes with a B2C app, whereas, B2B, you're working directly with companies to build it. You don't have such a wide range. There are higher contract values. Yeah. So give the audience, because I think a lot of business ideas are in the realm of B2C, especially if you don't have business experience. Right. And so give maybe the audience listening that has an idea for some kind of B2C app, your biggest takeaways up to this point, that if you were to go back and do anything different or just something that somebody really needs to keep focus on, what are those things?
Yeah, for B2C, the thing that I would say anybody needs to do would be establish a very strong beachhead market of a niche group of people. Because the problem with a consumer app, especially with something like cardio, And I get this every day. You should target run stores. You should get college students, fraternities and sororities on campus. You should get corporate wellness companies. You should get high school track athletes. You should get a whole bunch of influencers to compete with each other. You should get sports teams use this as a fan engagement. Like, there's so many things you can do. You got to pick 1 to 2 things that you're going to do really, really well, because a lot of companies fail by doing 8 to 10 things decently fine. And so for us, we decided, all right, we're going to be a product that walkers and runners who enjoy games like, and it's predominantly going to be men between the ages of 18 and 35 who are part of run clubs, specifically in the states of New York, Texas, California. That's what we're going to do. We're going to target ads at this predominantly male group of teenage to early to like young adult men who go to run clubs, who also have expressed interest in apps like Pokemon Go and Ingress and other things like that, and targeting them and then focusing on this K-factor growth from them being a part of run clubs and having those run clubs sign up and use the app. And we decided very early on that's where we're going to start. That's what we're going to stick to. And we're going to take that group, build out a critical mass of people from that, and then being able to launch that to other people as we start building enough user density to expand beyond that. Because there's so many people who walk and run and cycle and skateboard and roller skate and all that who want to use our app. We've got our youngest user on the app, I think, is like 9 years old. Our oldest is 88. The person on the app who owns the most turf, they cover like over, at this point, I want to say like over 2,000 square miles of turf inside the app over a 2-year period. And he's 71 and he just hikes by himself in vineyard land out in California. And it's a very wide range of people who use our product, but we have this very specific niche market of people that we focus on. And everybody else, like, hey, you guys can come on and use it, but just recognize it's not built for you yet, because we get people with requests all the time. Like, going back to what you said earlier about everybody has an opinion about something, and not all of them are good. Like, oh, man, you need to incorporate the ability for you to tell the app which shoe you are wearing, so that way you can track the mileage in your shoes, and you should have this RFID thing that you can put in your shoes so it automatically starts tracking whenever you start moving in those specific pairs of shoes, and you should create these divisions so me as a competitive bike rider can only compete against people who are bike riders, and then we should do, and it's like, these are all great ideas, but we can only do so many things at one time, and we can only do so many things well. And so what we decided to do well is create a fun daily habit-forming experience around walking and running for people who enjoy competitive games. And once we get through that group, we can do a little, and that's where we're branching out now. Now we're incorporating an ad product for brands to engage with and pay for. Now we're incorporating, some premium features for run clubs to have the ability for team chat and scheduling events that sync to their team members' calendars, and for them to be able to challenge other groups and different things like that. But that was not our initial focus, and we got to start somewhere and go somewhere else gradually. We can't do it all at one time, because then we're just going to be, shooting buckshot in the air at somebody 100 feet away. We need to be a sniper rifle and be extremely focused on one category, and then expand our range from there once we've done a good job at eliminating that first target.
Yeah, I feel like one of your jobs as a founder is like there's no shortage of ideas of things that you could be doing, but your job as a founder is to filter through those and decide what's actually worth the effort and the resources to pursue. And I think that's something I've been saying a lot just in my personal life, is like I want to quit fracturing my attention across multiple things and just like find those things that are really worth focusing on. And I think it works both across your personal life and your business. And I think that's really one of the more impactful things you can do. Your effort just gets multiplied when you're focusing on less things. I want to bring it back to the pitch on Shark Tank for a second, because one of the stories that you told, I need to hear some more about it. You had mentioned getting some grant money from Pokemon Go. And you had mentioned that you had like cold outreach to the founding engineer and then got the CEO's contact. I'm just curious, like, what were you saying to get these people to reply to you? I'll read it out. I think that'd be super interesting.
Yeah, so I'll read it. So this, for context, this is May of 2021. This is around the time I first started working on the idea. It didn't even have legit wireframes. Yeah, I mean, they were, but they were ugly. They were not even low fidelity. They were no fidelity. They were basically a step up from me taking a piece of paper and pencil and drawing them out and saying fun app on it instead of actually drawing things. And so I reached out to this engineer because I was looking for a CTO, and he said, I can't help you, but I can help you by connecting you with this guy. I can't CC you because I don't work at Niantic anymore, but what I can do is give it to you and wish you the best of luck. So here's the exact email, word for word. This is May of 2021. I said, and his name is John Hankey. I said, Mr. Hankey, I've read from several people at Niantic in the Lightship program the idea I'm working on right now, and the idea I'm working on was a hyperlink to a website that literally was just something that says cardi.io, because at the time it was like card with like a whole bunch of eyes because I couldn't get the domain for card.io. It's like, so it was a crappy website that was literally just a fill form for a wait list and a phone screen that said cardio on it with a sneaker. That was all it was. That was literally it. I don't know why I thought that'd be compelling, but whatever. It's basically Ingress. This is the one thing that he did give me. He told me that despite the fact that Pokemon Go is the big cash cow and what we're famous for, the best game to him that he ever made was Ingress, which was actually the background foundation of where Pokemon Go came from. Which Ingress is pretty much just walking around and claiming these towers around whatever city you were in. So it's very similar to what the idea of cardio was, but more gamey than running focused. So I told him this idea I'm working on, which is basically Ingress but with cardio, and that I should reach out to you about it. So here I am doing so. I'm working on a gamifying, what the heck? Anyway, I'm working on a gamifying cardio and making it something enjoyable for the casual person who despises it as much as the next guy. We've got hundreds of beta users signed up, advisors such as the founder of Mount My Run, execs at Peloton, and former Niantic employees, and I have a list of interested investors waiting to see how our beta performs. That was not true. All that said, I'd love to chat with you or anyone else at Niantic that can help get these things launched into the hands of the public. I think it has the potential to change a lot of lives and be a ton of fun to make while we do it. Looking forward to chatting. So that was May of 2021. Again, this is a Hail Mary. This is the equivalent of shooting a half-court shot at halftime. I'm not shooting it again when I check the ball up in the third quarter because it's not supposed to go in. So I'm just going to go back to normal business. However, 2 months later, with no follow-up at all, John responds and he says this. Also, no caps, by the way. Everything in this is lowercase. Destin, awesome, period. Looks cool, period. Sorry I didn't get back sooner, period. I wanted to introduce you to Trinidad and our org to help us follow up. Then Trinidad texted me, thanks for the intro, John. Moving you to BCC, moving forward to not clog up your inbox. Adding Asha to help us find some time to connect. Asha, please find time for myself, Destin, and Kelly to meet in the next 2 weeks. I see this later that day. I freaked out. So I forward this to my mom. I said, oh my God, Mom, can you believe it? What the fuck? So then I respond to John. I say, OMG, thanks so much for responding. We've been working on this for a long time, super passionate about it. Your cosign means so much. Following up the rest of your team now. Enjoy your weekend. So then flash forward. It's July. About 2 weeks later, we hop on a call. So it's me, this lady Trinidad, this lady Kelly, and myself. And so I, making small talk, and I say, oh, hey, why'd you guys take the call? And they say, oh, because John told us to. They told me straight up, because John told us to. I'm like, oh, that's not a good way to start. And so I'm pitching them, and I have my low-fidelity wireframes again, my drawings, my very rudimentary drawings. I'm like, oh, do you guys want to see the wireframe? They said, oh, no, just talk about it. I'm like, oh, okay. You want to see the deck I made? Because I even made a deck in preparation. They said, no, we don't need to see the deck. I'm like, okay, so you guys just want to talk? I said, yeah, let's just chat. And so we chat for 30 minutes, and then I say, well, we're looking for, 100 grand, 250 grand to get this off the ground. The idea is this. Here's how it would work, blah, 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 blah. And they say, okay, we'll get back to you. They never get back to me. So I'm going to see if I can find some of these emails that I sent them over this time. So, because there was quite a few of these.
You weren't gonna let it die there. You had some follow-ups to send out. Yeah.
No, man, I was following up crazy. So again, after our meeting, I followed up with them. I sent them the deck. I sent them the Figma docs and other things like that. I sent them this MVP development sheet and this 10-minute pitch PDF of like what it looked like. I even sent a PDF explaining like what we were going to be paying for with this money and whatnot. And so I followed and they say, oh, great. Thank you for spending time with us. We'll get back to you this week. This is July 28th. July 30th, I said, oh, one other thing I want to let you know. I just put in a provisional patent for this. I didn't get it, but I wanted to know I was trying. August the 9th, I haven't heard anything. I said, hey, wanted to follow up on this. Any updates? August the 9th, they say, hey, we had some changes in the office because of Delta variant, COVID and whatnot. Been busy. Talk to this person here, and also would anybody like to be added on this call? Blah, 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 blah. So this is August the 9th. So we actually had a meeting scheduled on August the 26th. So we had that on the books. August the 23rd, they canceled the meeting. And so now I'm following up. And I say, hey, I have a question. Is this cancellation a postponement or is it cancellation? Not very clear what this means for our conversation. Sorry if there's any level of confusion. Just want to be clear on what's happening here. No response.
I love that you called that out, like very, very candidly. I think some people would be like afraid to actually state that of like, are you canceling on me, or is this like a postponement?
Because they told when somebody cancels on you for a day before, day of, it's like, did you cancel this because you don't care, or did you cancel because you were actually legitimate?
No, I think that's good.
And they never responded. A week later, I made new Figma prototypes. I sent them over. Then I still don't really hear anything. So now September, I follow up and I say, hey, following up on last email, didn't hear anything. So now throughout the month of September, I send them update here, update here, update here, update here, update here. They finally text me again in October or in September and say the person who was my main point of contact left the company to start her own company. So I said, oh, Trinidad, who should I talk? She tells me to talk to some other guy. I reach out. She doesn't even give me that guy's email. She just says, talk to this guy. I reach out to that guy on LinkedIn. That guy tells me, oh, yeah, we have this program for companies like you that starts in March of 22. You should put in your application. I'm like, well, I don't want to put in an application. We just been talking to the CEO. It's like, well, that's the process. I don't know what to tell you. So then this is around the end of September. So I say, you know what? Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. So then I realized at the end of the day, I have the CEO's email. So I decided I CC'd all the people that I talked to in the organization who have been passing me along with the CEO. And I said, hey, how's this chance? What's the chance of a collaboration between the cardio team and Niantic still? I've seen that this person left the organization. I'm looking at transparency on where things are standing. Are there any documentation, projections, or information I can provide? Would love to have another conversation. Now, wouldn't you know, within 2 hours, this lady follows back up with me and says, oh, apologies, let's get back in touch. And I said, oh, yeah, we're still moving. Things are happening. Here's a list of all the things I did in the last month since we last chatted. And we talked. We exchanged some messages. She passed me to another lady. I talked to that lady. That lady definitely was going through the motions in our conversation. But then I just kept following up and talking and talking and talking. And then around mid-October, Kelly, who at this point became my main point of contact, says, hey, she sends me a very casual email. She says, hey, do you have time for a phone call on Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Of course I do. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll check my calendar. It looks like I'm good. Yeah. So then I hop on. It was very funny because up to this point, all the calls I've had with them were very professional. They were very structured. I could tell they were very put together for it and whatnot. This one, she was in her car picking up her kids from school on her phone. And she's like, look, Destin, here's the thing. You don't have any engineers. You don't have a prototype. Your Figma wireframes are pretty rudimentary. I don't think you fully understand like the gamification model of this. But man, we really like the fact you don't give up. So we're going to give you $50K and we're just going to let you see what you do with it. All right. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And that was that.
That's such a good story, man. I mean, I think the thing that founders can take away from that is it really is the persistence of it. I mean, you kind of learn this in sales, or at least I have in sales. I'm not a founder myself, but I've been part of sales teams at startups. Is like, you just have to follow up and keep pushing and be persistent and find creative ways to get in front of people and keep adding value when you're following. I mean, it's just a consistent like trudge through doing that. It's not fun, but you have to somehow figure out a way to keep yourself moving forward and continue to do that, because it's literally the only way that shit gets done is continuing to be consistent and follow up like that.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite reads about sales I ever read was the Challenger Sale, which is all about, hey, you're trying to sell somebody a product that you believe in your heart that they need and they don't know yet, and you don't need to be afraid to go to them and say, you're wrong. You are not right about the thing that you're saying. You're ignoring me, or you're saying we don't need this, or this isn't the time. As a salesperson, you have to be ready to sell to somebody who doesn't want to be sold to. You know, don't lie. Don't, use a whole bunch of psychological tricks on them or anything like that, but give them a strong understanding of what it is that they could be buying out on. Get them to see the FOMO of it. Get them to see whatever the value prop of it is, whether it's helping them with reducing costs, with increasing engagement with their employees, whether it be a return on their investment, if you want them to be a part of your round, whatever it is. You need to make them feel like, oh, you know what? The reasons I'm saying no aren't as valid as I thought they were. And I think a lot of salespeople mess up because when they get a no, they get nervous. I'm not allowed to legally disclose all the information for this yet because it's still being processed and it's a big deal with a pretty sizable blue chip company. But we're working on a big, 7-figure fundraiser in the running community here. And we've been talking to a lot of corporate groups to be a title sponsor for it. And a lot of them for these kind of programs do like dollar matching programs. And we talked to this one company here in Austin, and we said, we want you to be the title sponsor. We want you to cut us a 6-figure check up front for this. We don't want no dollar match program. And for the 30-minute conversation, the first 25 minutes, she was basically saying no, 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 no. And I'm not gonna lie, I got into my head about the fact that she was just not going for it. And then right when she was about to get off the call, I said, well, tell me what it takes to have an actual legitimate partnership with you guys. And she said, what? What do you mean a partnership? You don't think that a dollar match program is a partnership? And I said, frankly, no, I don't. Dollar match program is a BS. This is what I said. I said a dollar match program is kind of a BS way for you to act like you're supporting something, but you're only supporting it if the people in your organization do. And most of them aren't going to even care unless you give them a reason to care. And frankly, most of them aren't going to give a lot of money. So no, I don't consider it a partnership. You're a group in Austin. I'm a startup in Austin. This is a nonprofit in Austin. This is an initiative in Austin. Why would you, a company that talks about being repping Austin and being born in Austin and all this, wouldn't put a sizable amount of money in this? You can give 17, whatever millions of dollars for this project. You can't give 500 for this. How does that make sense? I said that. And she looked at me like, wow. But she said, first of all, I can see how you got a deal on Shark Tank. And you're right. Send me a list of all the tiers we would get for this level of donation, this level of donation, this level of donation. And, now we're in the process of closing that deal. And we were 5 minutes away from it just being a BS dollar match program. And hopefully we walk away with a 6-figure check because of the fact that I was not afraid to say straight up, the answer you gave me is BS and I don't take it. And if you're going to hang up on me, you're going to hang up on me, but I'm going to at least tell you what I think about it.
That's awesome, man. I feel like there's just so much that people can take away from your attitude that you bring towards building a company, towards sales, towards just seeking out opportunities for yourself. And it was very apparent to see from the time that I met you at UK that was your, not only who you were, that was your reputation as well. That was how people viewed you in the Lexington startup ecosystem. So it's really cool just to see where that attitude has taken you. I think it's very inspiring, for sure. Well, as we kind of wrap things up here, it's been an awesome conversation catching up with you in general, but also just hearing about everything that's gone on with cardio. Kind of tell us what your vision of cardio is, not necessarily over the short term, but over the long term. What do you want to turn this into? Where do you want to take this company, and what does the end game look like for you?
Yeah, so we want to talk company wise. I look at it 3 ways. I look at it for myself, I look at it for the company, and I look at the mission of what the company is supposed to do. So first off, the mission of the company. My goal is to help become an entry point for people who don't like cardio fitness, to have something that makes it engaging for them. I would like us to become, for people, like a Duolingo for learning language, but for running. Like, hey, you know what? You want to learn how to speak Spanish, you go to Duolingo, and they gamify the process of doing something difficult, which is learning a whole new language. I want people to come to our app and think, oh, this is a gamified way to become more active. I'm not saying you got to qualify for Boston or anything like that, but just move 30 minutes a day and trying to find a way to gamify that for millions of people around the world who probably don't find that level of community for a person like them on something like Strava or Garmin. While also still being a fun app for people who do use those ones, but just want to incorporate more fun social competition and collaboration inside of that. Then on the company side, I see this as being a project that I work on and grow into the millions of users and millions of dollars in revenue scale, and then we sell it to another brand, another app, or even a game studio who thinks it would be a good addition to their portfolio. And then for myself, my goal is for this to be my first base hit. I'm not expecting this to be my Tesla, but I also think it's going to be a really sizable project that's going to make a lot of impact, show people that I can build a successful product. And then from there, being able to use the money that's made off of this and the connections I made off of this and the knowledge I learned from this and turn it into the foundation of whatever my next one is.
I love it, man. Well, we're certainly rooting you on, and are excited to see all the success that you're having so far. Before we let you go, tell people where they can download the app, where they can follow you on social media. Give yourself a few plugs here before wrapping up.
Yeah, for sure. So for my iOS people, please find us on the App Store at car.io. So it's the word cardio, but with a dot between the D and the I. Android people, apologize. You guys don't have FaceTime or cardio. It's tough. But for now, you guys can at least sign up for the Android waitlist on our website. It is downloadcar.io. So the word downloadcar.io. Or if you just look up cardio app, cardio Shark Tank or whatnot in Google, it'll be like the first thing that pops up. You can sign up for the waitlist there. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. So just look up Destin George Bell. Got good SEO. You will find me, and I do respond to messages. That's the funniest thing about Shark Tank. People think I'm like a celebrity now. I had a guy walk up to me at a networking event I went to a week ago, and he's like, "Oh man, you're the guy from Shark Tank?" Like, yeah. I say, if I connect with you, will you connect back? Like, yes. If I message you, will you respond? Yes. Like, bro, it's just a TV show. Like, I'm just a dude. So yes, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And let's chat, especially for all my young founders out there, anybody in UK or in the Lexington community. I've been gone for a while, but I still got love for UK, and any opportunity I can to come back and give back and help out, I'm always down to do that.